Hello, and thanks for watching this video. My name's Adam Seaman. I'm the founder of Positive Leadership, and in this video I'm going to give you a little overview about what positive leadership is. I know there's many different programs out there that have different approaches to how they teach about leadership. So if you already have a system that you like and that's working for you, maybe you'll get some ideas out of this video that could complement that. And otherwise, if you're just here to find out more about positive leadership, my intention is to give you a quick overview. There's a lot to cover. I'm going to talk fast, and so I just figure you have the ability to stop and rewind if it goes by a little too fast for you, or at any time if you want, just feel free to send me an email if you didn't get your questions answered from watching this. So we're going to go ahead and start talking a little bit about what positive leadership is, and I'm going to go over the format for what we're going to talk about. First, we're going to talk about what is positive leadership, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about how it works, and then finally, what are the potential benefits for your program. So starting off, what is positive leadership? Well, first of all, it's a leadership curriculum. It's an ebook. It's a personal and professional development program, and we'll break down more about what's underneath each of these. Also, I think it's important to say that this is a program developed specifically for community leadership programs. I started this when I was board president of my local leadership program, and we've been around for about 30 years at that point. We'd always talked about, well, we have the name leadership in our title, but when I went through as a participant, we really didn't have much that was specifically leadership development. A lot of it was meeting leaders in the community and learning about different aspects of the community, which was awesome. We all loved our program. But when I became board president a couple years later, one of the issues we considered as a board was, are we teaching leadership, and what is our approach to teaching leadership? And we had tried some different things. We had used a couple different books that are out there, and also some different curricula. And what we found is that the material was good. I mean, the books we selected to try out were well received, but sort of a lukewarm greeting, and we were hoping for a little bit more of an impact from that. And really what it felt like was kind of a book club that we were reading together, because it was a book that anybody could purchase from Amazon or someplace else, and some of the participants actually had already experienced the book, so we always wanted to try to provide something new. So the following year, I proposed a curriculum and we tried it out. It went really well, and then over the next few years we continued to improve upon it. And now where it is we have over 20 programs around the country that are using it, and very satisfied with it. So I thought this would be a video to tell you a little bit more about what's entailed in all of that. So this is basically an overview of positive leadership. It's just like a little map of the key concepts, and each icon you see represents one of the capacities. And what we're really looking at are three main areas. The self, so each of your individual participants, so in that case it's a development program, a leadership development program. We're also looking at the community as a whole, so as we're learning about the community, what is the relationship between who I am as a participant in the program and then within the larger context of the community, and how can I have an impact? So in between those two is leadership, and that's the way the individual can help make positive change in the community. Another way to look at it is, again, this is self and leadership, and then community at the bottom, three overlapping circles. And what that reveals are the 7 capacities that we talk about in positive leadership: authenticity, purpose, advocacy, resilience, community building, reason, and gratitude. So what makes positive leadership unique? Well, as I mentioned, it's designed specifically for community leadership programs. A lot of leadership books and materials out there are geared mainly for corporate audiences. They're either written by CEOs or organizational development consultants, which I happen to be actually, but they're written for the context of a corporate environment. And while many of our participants in the program are from the corporate sector, we also have participants from nonprofits and education and government and faith communities and community volunteers. So we really wanted a curriculum that appealed to or had relevance to our diverse makeup instead of just maybe one main sector of it. The second thing is that positive leadership is currently only available through community leadership programs, and I think that makes it unique. Your participants will not have seen this material. They will not have experienced positive leadership before, so everybody starts at the same level, and it's something that they can explore together as a group. The other thing is that we really have worked over the years to make sure it was as easy to implement as possible, that you just put in the key and start it up. So it's a turnkey program, and it's also meant to be easily integrated into your current leadership programs. We didn't want it to be a disruption to what you have already found to be successful. We wanted it to be an ingredient you add that enhances all the other pieces. So it should be easily integrated. It's very flexible. And we field tested it with over 20 programs, and so far people have been very satisfied. Everybody who uses it continues to use it and make it their own and find ways that it works best for them. And these are just some of the programs that currently use positive leadership. So I'm just going to scroll them out there, and then there's more all the time that are interested in it, and so it tells us that there's a need out there to really have a leadership curriculum that fits within these community leadership programs. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about what's included. So it's a lot, so let's just jump right into that. First is the Positive Leadership ebook. So all the chapters are in electronic format to make it easy to send out to participants. It's also available in one file that has all the chapters together at one time, and so programs like to customize how they do it. Some like to give the whole book at the beginning of the year, and some people like to do more of a serial approach, just give out one chapter at a time. There's 9 chapters total, so the first chapter is the Foundations chapter, and that's really important. It lays out some really key foundation concepts. Then there's the 7 capacities: authenticity, purpose, and then we have a conclusion chapter to sort of wrap everything up. And what happens is that all these concepts, the foundation and the 7 capacities, they really all integrate so well into a unified framework. They all fit together, and there's a lot of ways to look at the interplay of the different capacities. So even if you talk about a capacity 1 month, it may still be relevant when you talk about even another capacity months later. It's this entire thing, this framework is based on positive psychology. That's a field of study that's been a passion for me for a while. And really what it's about is creating positive institutions, whether it be a nonprofit, whether it be looking at the community as a whole. So positive institutions and really positive personal development is important. So a lot of the concepts we talk about are related to this field called positive psychology. What we've included recently, and we're always updating things and responding to feedback. So one of the things we did this year is create a field guide. So each capacity chapter presents the concepts and examples, but then there's also a field guide, which is just a series of exercises or application that your participants can implement on their own for developing their capacities even further. So we're really excited about that. Each chapter comes with a PowerPoint presentation that could be edited or customized. Right now, what I did with the PowerPoints is make them more inclusive of content, so they might be a little long, is what I'm trying to say. But you can easily like shorten them, edit them, bring in other pieces that are of interest to your program, so they're editable and customizable. We also have actually 2-page chapter summaries, and these summaries are meant if you had a guest speaker and you maybe wanted that person to touch on the capacity for the day. Let's say they were coming in to talk about I don't know, the Chamber of Commerce or something in your community. But you also wanted them to maybe talk about their leadership role and how it relates to, the authenticity capacity or the gratitude capacity. Then they could do a quick read of get the general idea and then maybe tailor their remarks so that there's some continuity in the program. We also provide an implementation guide which talks through all these different suggestions for how can you implement positive leadership. And I'll get to some of those. I have some frequently asked questions I'll go over, and that'll give you an idea of what the kind of things that are in the implementation guide. And then right now I'm in the process of developing videos for each chapter. So I'm presenting the content as if I were sharing this information with the group. And this is meant for whoever facilitates positive leadership to kind of hear me talk about the concepts in addition to what they might read in their preparation of reading the book. I'll have videos available too. I mean, if programs wanted to use those videos in the class itself, there's certainly no reason not to do that either. And then there's also a lot of additional resources we like to provide. So I'm constantly coming across articles where they talk about some aspect of positive leadership. And so I like to provide those articles for people to get a different angle on what this capacity might look like in action or in the real world. And I also am always thinking about different activities that could be used within a class setting to provide discussion and create opportunity for interaction with among participants. And then the other thing that's included, it's not a written thing, but it's the customer support. It's the way that when people have questions or want to find ways to tailor something, that we're always available because we're really passionate about this work and making community leadership programs even stronger. We realize, I've personally benefited from it. I live in a community that sees such great benefit from all the people that have been through the community leadership program. So we want to support that. We want to make this as effective as it can be in helping develop leaders. And then there is a cost for this, and we really wanted to make sure that it was within reason for nonprofits and allows us to upkeep things like our website and continually develop the materials. So it's just a flat rate of $35 per participant. So some programs like to use this in just maybe their flagship program. Others want to use it in their flagship, but then they also use it in their young professionals program. We even have programs using it with their youth program. And if it's for a youth program, then I would talk with you about a special rate for young people, because I have a passion for developing our young leaders and want to make sure that it's as easy as possible. Plus, I know that the youth programs aren't necessarily the revenue generating programs for community leadership programs, but in either case, there's just many different ways that different programs have used it. So that just gives you the pricing and all that's included. So how does it work? And I'll just give you some ideas here real quick. The first thing you want to do is introduce the overall positive leadership model and concept at your orientation or at your opening retreat. And one example of how people do that, one program really likes to just kind of keep it light. So she takes the 7 capacities and writes each one on an index card and divides up the participants into 7 groups, gives them their card, and then what they have to do is present a skit that portrays that capacity, and then the rest of the participants would try to guess what that is. And it's just a really fun way to do it, because when you do skits like that, you see people's personalities come out, and people get goofy and it's fun. And then at the end, she says, okay, well, these are the 7 capacities that we're going to be exploring over the course of the leadership program. And that's really it. It's just a very light, kind of fun way to introduce it. So that's just one example of how people have done that. Then what you would do is you'd want to provide the pre-reading or the chapters to your participants. And there's a couple of ways to do it. In the past, it was pretty much the program could either print out copies for everybody or just send the PDF file for them to read. But now this year we've added a new feature where everything is on our website, and you can log in as the program director or administrator and invite your participants to create an account on the website where then they could access the materials on their own. So that's kind of a nice feature we wanted to add to make administration of this really simple. And then it's also good to provide questions to sort of prompt their thinking as they're reading through the chapters and create sort of this expectation that when the class meets the next time, these will be the questions we'll be going over. And a lot of times participants will want to be prepared for those conversations. And so they will read through the materials, think about the questions, and come in ready to have some really robust conversation. Each chapter has a self-assessment at the beginning where the participants can reflect on some of these questions in terms of how developed that capacity is for them. Maybe there's some capacities where they really want to enhance their development in other areas where they're already doing a great job. So these questions are meant to sort of give them a sense of all that. Then when they get to class, you want to have a facilitated class discussion. And by that, I mean facilitation versus training. A lot of times programs will treat the leadership development portion like it's a workshop or something like that. And what I've heard a lot is that, and it's been my experience too, is that participants are already experienced with leadership and the challenges they face. So adult learning really is more about letting the participants share their experiences, letting them learn from each other. It just makes it way more engaging. So I think programs that use positive leadership really should take a facilitation approach as opposed to a training approach. And then throughout the day, you can integrate, the topic of the day. Let's say the topic of the day is education or the arts or civic government. Well, as you go through the day, you can tie the experiences of that day to the capacity. So like I mentioned earlier, you could have the speakers present whatever they were going to present, but then maybe touch on one aspect of the positive leadership model for that day. We've even had programs really connect the venue where they were meeting that day to the capacity. And one example that comes to mind is a program on Education Day. They also had the topic of resilience, the capacity of resilience, which is the positive leadership capacity. And so on that day, they arranged to meet at a school that had previously closed down due to poor management and performance and had recently reopened under new leadership. And so the school was making a comeback or bouncing back, which is kind of one of the pieces of resilience. So they were actually meeting in a place that was modeling the capacity. So there's all sorts of little tie-ins that you could do. And there's just optional ideas. For example, you could use positive leadership capacity, whatever the capacity is for the day. Let's say the capacity was purpose. Then at the end of the day, you could reflect and wrap up the day with participants by asking, how did you see the capacity of purpose play out in anything that happened today? And that really helps bring together everything that happened, which is one of the benefits of positive leadership that I hear users say. They say that positive leadership actually kind of adds or brings a consistent thread throughout all the program. And one example is with class projects. So some programs will have break their participants up into groups and they do a community project, and then at the end of the year they do a report. Well, one program said, and this happened without planning, but that each of the project groups presented their project using the positive leadership capacities as their outline. And all of them did that, but none of them prearranged to do that. It wasn't part of the assignment. It was just that positive leadership just provides that natural organizational structure that participants really come to identify with the program. So that was really cool. Another thing that we're doing recently, I'm a certified Gallup Strengths Finder coach. So we have a curriculum we've developed called Talent to Strength, talent number 2 and then strength. And so this is a way that programs can integrate another really cool tool from Gallup, the Strengths Finder, into the program. And so we'll have more materials on that if that's of interest. So what are some of the common questions that come up? One is who facilitates the positive leadership segment. And I will tell you that there's a lot of different approaches that work. But the main thing I want to say is that you really should have one or two consistent facilitators. I know some programs have tried to have like a different facilitator each month. And what that loses out on is that sort of continuity where, maybe a conversation in 1 month, maybe you want to refer back to it later on. And so if it's a new facilitator, they wouldn't really know that. So I really recommend identifying somebody who truly is a facilitator, not a lecturer, not really a trainer, but a facilitator who could consistently do that within your program. And it could be a staff member, it could be a board member, it could be someone in the community. Here in my community, I don't actually facilitate positive leadership. There's another consultant in town who facilitates that segment. So it could be, whoever you think would be best. And next thing is, how are the chapters distributed? And I touched on this earlier. You could email them out, or you can invite participants to come to the website, positiveleadership.com, log in, and then they can get the materials that way. So very easy to do. How much time does positive leadership take? And I know I hear this all the time. It's like, our days are already packed. We already got so much to do. So really it's scalable. Some programs do it for just 30 minutes. Other programs spend an hour on it. And some programs start doing it for 30 minutes, but the participants really like it and they want to keep going with the conversation. So the next year they might schedule an hour for it. So I leave that to the programs to decide, but I don't think that it needs to replace anything you already do. Unless you're finding that there's something that you've been doing that hasn't been necessarily really a big hit with participants, then this is a chance to upgrade that time. So another question that goes with this is like, when should we do it? And my personal recommendation is to do it sometime in the morning. So that way, throughout the day, as you do site visits or have guest speakers or do activities, you can refer back to the capacity for the day. Now, some people say they don't want to do it first thing in the morning because people aren't woken up yet. So, you know your participants and you know what's best. But I think sometime in the morning, even if it's not first thing, but sometime in the morning would be great. Can I change the order of the content and specifically the capacities? And they are in this order for a reason. So the answer is no. There's not a lot I would say no about, but they really do need to stay in the order that they're presented. It'll become clear once you get more familiar with the content. But and I know the concern is it's like, oh, I think that the class day that we do here would fit really well with this capacity, but that capacity comes later or earlier. So can we just move it to when we need it? And the truth is that every capacity will just fit with whatever your class topic is that day. And I say that, and some people are like, I don't know, does it really? But yeah, it really does. I hear that all the time where people are surprised even by the insights that come from an unexpected combination of class day topic and capacity for the day. So, what if my participants want to bring positive leadership into their workplace? This happens a lot. And yeah, I want to make sure that the positive leadership curriculum is really, for now at least, part of the community leadership program and not, but when I hear that people want to bring this into their workplace, that really tells me that people value it and they want to share it with people around them. And so I actually do encourage that. If they find it useful or helpful, I just want them to kind of cite their, reference the resources and all of that, and not pass off the work as somebody else's or something. But other than that, I think it's great. What if there are too many or not enough sessions? So every program that I work with, there's so many uniquenesses in their community and how they structure their program. Some just have a few sessions and some have many sessions. And really, positive leadership is scalable. For example, there's 7 capacities. So that's 7 programs or 7 sessions that you could use this with. But if you have more than that, I think the introduction chapter has several pieces that you could use on their own. Like each piece could be part of a class day. The conclusion chapter also has some really relevant concepts, so you can kind of scale it to what you need. If your program has fewer sessions, you could double up. I mean, you could cover 2 capacities on a day or something like that. If we wanted to check it out, how can we do that? Well, just let me know if you're interested. I can set you up with a trial access code so that you can go onto the website. You'll see everything, all the chapters, all the PowerPoints, all the field guides, and that way you could really get a sense of what's in there. And I encourage that, because the most important thing for me is that there's a fit. I want to make sure that positive leadership fits with your program's philosophy. I don't want to have people use positive leadership if it really doesn't fit for them. So really want to be transparent about what we do. So what are the benefits? And these are just some of them. These come from people I've talked to over the years who use positive leadership. So the first one, and the obvious one, is that it provides community leadership development. I mean, we want to prepare our participants to go out into the community and make a positive difference. So this is a curriculum, as I mentioned, designed specifically for community leadership. The main difference there, just because I've referenced it a couple times without explaining it, is that in organizations within a corporation, for example, there's a hierarchy. And a lot of times what we call leadership is really authority. And they're very similar concepts, and we sort of fuse them together into one, but they're really not the same thing, even though we just kind of lump it all together and just say, oh yeah, they're the leaders. But we really separate out authority from leadership and talk about leadership, because in the community, people have to influence, but they aren't authority figures. They don't have that formal authority where people have to listen to them. And so we talk about leadership separately from authority. The second thing is that it really helps with recruitment, because you're offering something new and exciting and dynamic that they really can't get anywhere else. And I think that's an attractive feature for people who are wanting to get involved in their communities. It increases the value proposition. So while they're in the class, they're actually experiencing the value of this. And any time that a program could create in their participants a sense of, this is really good. I'm really getting something out of it. I leave at the end of the day. I've met really cool people. I've seen some really cool things, and I've learned some interesting aspects of leadership, or people have shared experiences through the conversations around positive leadership. So it just increases that overall sense of value or a takeaway. It gives them something unique, as I've mentioned before. It's not really available anywhere else. Programs have been able to use this for revenue generation. And so what I mean by that is one program, for example, wanted to, and I think it gets to one of the other points about alumni engagement, or maybe not, I didn't put it in here, but alumni engagement is another benefit from this. And so what would happen is they would, you might have participants who say, my leadership program experience was so cool, I wish I could do a part 2, or, well, this could be that part 2. I mean, they can't maybe do as intense a program as they did before when they went through the leadership program, but maybe you could do like a monthly breakfast and invite them to learn about positive leadership, especially because they're alumni, they haven't experienced positive leadership yet. So one program did that, and it became a revenue generator. I mean, it was still $35 a person, but they charged, more than that, so that, it brought revenue into the program, which is fantastic. And another example, one woman said there was an employer in her town that never sent anybody through their program. They're like, well, we just don't see it as a good investment. Well, we don't know what our employee's going to get out of it. But then after she started using positive leadership, went back to that employer and then, talked about the positive leadership element. And that alone was enough to convince them to start sending somebody through the program. And so that brought in probably more revenue than the actual cost of for the whole class of the positive leadership. So I thought that was really cool. So I hope that it helps programs be more attractive to their community members. It's compatible with other curricula. So you might already have something you like, or some topics that you really want to make sure to include, and they're not necessarily part of positive leadership. There's no reason it wouldn't be compatible with what's in there, within the positive leadership curriculum. It brings that coherence or continuity that I talked about, that participants start to think in terms of, oh, that was on Authenticity Day, or that was on Community Building Day, or Reason Day. And so they start to think about their program experience in terms of these 7 capacities. The other thing is we're always listening to feedback, suggestions, sharing ideas that we learned from one community with another. So we're always looking to improve it. And just this year, we've already introduced several really cool new features. So that's a little bit about positive leadership. If you want more information, just go to our website, or just feel free to give me a call directly, or email me, adam@positiveleadership.com. Again, thanks very much for tuning in, and hope to hear from you sometime. Thanks, and good luck.